Can you tell me a story?
Sure. Once upon a time, a mom needed a new car.
Was she brave?
She was tired, mostly. But she went to Carvana.com and found a great car at a great price. No secret treasure map required.
Did she have to fight a dragon?
Nope, she bought it 100% online. From her bed, actually.
Was it scary?
Honey, it was as unscary as car buying could be.
Did the car have a sunroof?
It did, actually.
Okay, good story.
Car buying you'll want to tell stories about. Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.
Hey, don't sleep on this. Tonight, Friday, April 17th, is the time for our latest ScreamShare Inner Sanctum screening of Stephen King's Sleepwalkers. That's right. Join me as I host a Netflix teleparty screening of this bonkers Romeo and Juliet and Romeo's mom and a sheriff's deputy who works with his cat classic. So, how can you attend? Well, you go into the show notes and you click that link for ScreamShare. That's my weekly newsletter that brings you horror movie recommendations so you don't have to worry about that decision paralysis demon keeping you down for your next horror movie watch. But you sign up for that, you add the Teleparty app to your Chrome web browser, and you sign up on the thank you page for a Google Calendar reminder. Then starting tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, and 6 p.m. Pacific, I'll be on the air helping you make it through Sleepwalkers without catching cat scratch fever, I guess. Anyways, now back to the show. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Animal Attack April time is here. That's right, we're talking about Primate on Kill by Kill. Well, greetings and salutations, Internet. It's your old pal Patrick Hamilton coming to you once again from the big island of Hawaii. This is the Kill by Kill podcast, where we're dedicated to celebrating the least discussed component of any horror film, the characters. So we're going to unpack all the goriest details of 2026's Primate in the hopes that a local Hawaiian's untimely end is just the beginning of the jokes we might make at their expense. As always, there's only one person I trust to bribe me with pretty baubles so I don't rip their jaw off. The one, the only, Gina Radcliffe. How are you doing today, Gina?
Bad. Patrick, bad.
Bad. So, we originally had this on the schedule, but of course, the schedule got thrown out the window when you had an organ transplant.
Yes.
But ultimately, I knew we would cover it eventually. I was just so thrilled because it's one of the few movies that I've been invited to in advance that I'm like, hey, I'm a big shot now. Look at me. And then I couldn't talk about it for months and months and months and months. Whereas you've just watched it. So I don't have to ask when the first time is you saw Primate.
It was this afternoon.
There you go. But did you feel like when I went off about it, in my online reactions as I was, asked to do, did you go, oh, I wish I didn't have to get an organ transplant that helps me live? I could go see Primate instead.
I should have turned down this once in a lifetime living donor organ so I could have gone to see the Killer Chimp movie.
I mean, if you had your priorities in the right place, Gina.
I know. I'm a terrible co-host. I know. Unreliable. When the kidneys call, I have to answer. I'm sorry.
It's true.
I will say that.
Yeah.
Now that I have watched it, and I did enjoy it, but this is definitely like a theater movie. This is definitely something you need to see in a crowd.
This is what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because definitely I benefited, right, from watching it early before I had really seen much of a preview for it, honestly. I knew of its existence, but I didn't know much more beyond that. And I think maybe some festival audiences had seen it. I'd heard good things, but I didn't know the beats of the movie or anything like that. And yeah, my audience was very active and being filmed, so that was part of it.
Were you caught throwing your popcorn in the air and those clips that they always show and preview audiences?
No, because that's not my reaction to things. My reaction to things is to sink into a small ball
or cackle maniacally.
Yes, and clap. I did clap. The other part of my theater experience, though, I must note, is that 7 minutes into the movie, the AMC at the Grove evacuated.
Oh.
And we were shoved out into the street with no clue of whether or not we would be able to come back in.
When did they at least start the movie over? Like when you went back in?
Did, but I would say 3/4 of the audience came back.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Are they letting us back into an inferno to finish watching this movie?
Well, they cleared the inferno, or at least they cleared the fire alarm that went off.
They defused the bomb.
Yes, whatever the offending thing was. The other component of it is I do believe that soap bubbles, because that was the holidays. It was December at the Grove, and they famously have snowfall. Well, what snowfall is at the Grove is actually soap bubbles.
Okay.
And soap totally got in my fucking popcorn.
Ooh.
And that was the end of the popcorn for me. So the big benefit, though, outside of seeing a nice movie for free, was I got to meet Linnea Quigley.
Oh, okay.
And she was a delight. And she was wearing the Black Christmas hand finger sweater. That was made by my old pal Amalia, who now owns or one of the owners of Killer Fitness in Burbank. So if you want to do a horror themed aerobic workout, go to Killer Fitness in Burbank. I also have this finger sweater, but I bought it when I was 70 pounds heavier than I am now.
Well, you just wrap yourself up in it like a wee babe.
Yeah, it does look enormous on me. So
I would think you'd actually want a roomy sweater because then you can layer.
It's a little too roomy.
I don't know how often layering really is necessary in Southern California, though.
No, that's the other thing. Is it's more of a Wisconsin sweater, and so.
And then you'd have to explain to everybody why you have a sweater with hands on it.
Right. No one knows what it is.
That it's not like saucily cupping your breasts.
Exactly. But when I saw Linnea wearing it, I'm like, oh, did you get that from Amalia? And she said yes. And so we had a nice conversation about how much we enjoy Amma and the things that she does. And so that was nice to meet horror royalty. And of course, she was an absolute delight. But I didn't bother her after that. What were we talking about again? Oh, Primate. We weren't talking about sorority babes in the slime ballorama. So Primate was a big theater experience. There was a lot of yelling and cavorting about. And I would say, there was like 30% of that was influencer overacting.
Right. Like, just like when they bite into a hamburger and roll their eyes back, like they've just had the best orgasm of their lives. Yeah.
Yes. But there were many people around me that were normies and including a gaggle of college age girls who were legitimately freaked out the entire time and reacted the same way. I knew those were good scares, and it got me out of my seat, and the tension was real. So yes, I do believe it is a bit more of a theatrical experience. I don't. Yeah. That being said, I don't know that it's like throw it in the trash if you're not.
Well, no, but also at a practical level, it's lit in a way where it's meant to be shown in a theater.
Yeah.
So and I watched it, maybe this was poor judgment on my part, but I watched it in the middle of the afternoon.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So it was a bit underlit in parts.
Sure.
So it wasn't, and I had a hard enough time telling these characters apart. Which I think one of the things, I had the feeling that, given the brief conversation we had about this earlier, we're going to get into that in a moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, that didn't help in me trying to keep straight who was who.
I would agree with that to a degree. I can totally see that.
But that being said, I would not tell people, well, don't watch it because of that. I had a good time.
Yeah. I think, I suggest I put it out there on the Scream Share newsletter a few weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago when it came out on VOD. I was surprised how much I genuinely enjoyed it. And not just from a regular Scarefest thing, but I really had a pretty good time with the characters. I feel like they managed to give them distinct wants and desires. And they didn't always do what I expected them to do given the setup. They actually kind of became more interesting human beings as the movie progressed. And I got to see those character changes within action. And I genuinely enjoyed that part, which I think is something I hadn't quite seen in a lot of director, writer Johan Roberts' other work. Like 47 Meters Down, I think is a solid shark movie. It's a Gina Radcliffe, it's fine level with some nice set pieces in there. Like I knew he was a good set piece guy. But I didn't feel like, oh, here's a person who really knows how to handle character. And this was, I felt, a step up for him in the character department for me.
I did not see 47 Meters Down. I figured we would eventually get to that at some point.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of was more focusing on just the animal attack part of it. And I will say, one of the big pluses of this movie is that it hits the ground running.
Sure.
If you go in thinking, oh boy, I hope the chimp rips someone's face off, he does within the first 5 minutes. I would even say that second to the jaw getting ripped off, that's probably the gnarliest kill for me in the movie is the one that happens in the first 5 minutes. That doesn't mean to say the rest of it's all downhill from there, but like they've got you sitting up and paying attention immediately.
Yes, they grab your attention by the face, quite literally. So much so that when I had a conversation with somebody about it, after it had come out, and someone was like, I was kind of sad to see no one's face got ripped off. And I'm like, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that is the first kill.
You were late to that movie, weren't you?
I was like, and then I began to doubt myself. I go, well, now I saw this in advance. So now I'm beginning to wonder if I saw a version of the movie that's not in theaters currently. And then I was backed up by other people like, no, a face gets ripped off. So I think this is also another one of those things where people were putting their hands up over their own face during this sequence.
Oh, sure. I mean, I was, but I didn't expect wow, that's a skull. That dude is still alive with his entire whole skull exposed.
Yeah. I do think it is one of those things where it's interesting to kind of back to back this with Cujo, because in a way, like, this started as a Cujo riff. The first version of this movie was a dog with rabies as kind of a Cujo homage. And then the writer-director had this in various studios and production companies for like a decade. And one point before Paramount, it was at Netflix. And Netflix told him they had to change it from a dog because, quote, dogs don't work on the algorithm. And
they don't?
I don't. According to them at the time.
America's favorite animal, the dog, does not do well on the Netflix algorithm?
They're not. They don't have their own, Sky Buddies, variant over there. They have not Marleyed and Mead over at Netflix, I guess.
Yeah.
They haven't done a big dog movie. Now, that being said, guess what's in the pipeline at Netflix?
A killer dog
Cujo.
movie. A Cujo remake. Okay, so we might actually literally get to see Steve jacking off on a bed.
Oh, let's hope. I mean,
that's what the movie lacks.
It really, what it does lack is jacking off. To put it in the 10 to midnight parlance. This movie, I will say, Primate specifically, needs more jack-off machines. It doesn't have any of that. And neither does Cujo.
Yeah, nobody gets laid. In fact, they got people. People showed up to get laid, and then they were brutally killed. So really, this is a moral tale. This is a cautionary tale about showing up at a stranger's cliffside Hawaiian mansion.
The other thing that I really, really liked about it, and I said it at the time, and I liked it even more this time, is that I am not forced to watch a chimp performer. They're not trying to put a real chimp out there and then or a CGI chimp. Now, there's some CGI assistants here, but it's really a 5 foot tall Colombian dude.
Yeah,
in the Ben costume.
I watched my daughter. Well, I watched with my daughter who studied primatology in college.
Oh wow! That's so interesting.
She thought he did a pretty good job. She said there were certain moments where she could tell it was a person in a suit,
sure, yeah.
like certain movements and all. But she said that overall that she thought that it was a pretty authentic performance as a chimp.
Yeah, and I think I'm willing to take some, it's not quite as realistic beats to never have to worry about a real animal.
Oh, of course not. Of course not. No. And obviously, we could, this would be a good companion piece. I have to feel that the screenwriter took some inspiration from Nope.
Sure.
And the Gordy, I mean, I don't know if you can call it a subplot. It's just sort of a parallel story.
Yes. It's a don't fuck with nature.
Right.
Or the super nature sort of story that needs to be told within the whole.
Right. And, before you when you get, when you encounter online a lot of people who talk about the good old days of filmmaking, where, you could tell racist jokes. You could have a female character's entire job is to show up and show her boobs off. That was before, everything got political. We also had a series of movies called Every Which Way But Loose.
Right.
And its sequel, Any Which Way You Can. Don't look for explanation for what either of those titles mean. You won't get one.
No, I think there might be a theme song involved. It might have been a
theme song. Also
hit.
does not explain anything.
Yeah.
I think it is. You drive me crazy. Why won't you break up with me? Which like does not have anything to do with the plot, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, one of the legacies of this series is the rampant mistreatment of live animal actors in it, right. Eventually resulting in one being beaten to death for the crime of A, attacking someone, B, shitting all over the floor, or C, stealing a donut off a craft services table. Patrick, I know you know the answer to this because you're the same age as I am. But it's C. Yeah. This beautiful, wild creature who was trained to give the finger and punch people was beaten to death for stealing a donut. And this is why today we have most for wild animals, predominantly CGI or people in costumes. Yeah. I would say that's a vast improvement, even if the CGI isn't very good.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a vast improvement.
I just, anytime, and that's the sort of weird thing when we get into some of the older animal attack movies that we've covered in the past and we're bound to cover in the future, is you're dealing with creatures who never asked to be actors, never dreamt of it. They're just showing up on set and being asked to do these weird things, these odd behaviors. And the whole idea of it creeps me out. And as a result, I was happy to be unburdened by that because I'm just going to go into there's an unreality here and I'm just going to accept it to enjoy the plot that is. That being said, I will say that upon my second watch, what sort of crystallized for me as an active subplot within the movie is that this is a lot about sort of mankind's hubris in the face of nature.
Oh, of course,
you can kind of do anything you want with it because you have your own reasons and those are justified.
Right. And you've got this, essentially trained chimpanzee that's treated like a member of the family, but really kept as, a pet. We have this scientist mother who before the movie starts has passed away. She has taught this chimpanzee, I believe it was 3,000 words.
Yes.
Now again, my daughter says that in most of these cases that is actually overstated. That chimpanzees don't really what's the word I'm thinking of when they learn something and they hold on to it.
Sure.
There's a word for it.
Retain.
They don't really retain the language.
Right.
They're mostly what they're doing is mimicking.
Okay.
So they're not really teaching these creatures to communicate with humans. It's sort of they're more impersonating like hand gestures and things like that, and pressing a button. So it's very nice, and they treat the animal well, but at the same time they also have a wild animal in a house with a hearing impaired person. Yeah. Which that did not seem a good idea, nor does it seem a good idea to have a wild animal in a house that you can only escape from in one direction.
Well, yes.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.
They don't have a stun gun. They don't have, a tranquilizer gun. They don't appear to have anything to control this animal if it suddenly, snaps and, abides by its nature and attacks someone. They're very much like, oh, he wouldn't do that.
Yes. There's an assumption made that nothing can necessarily go wrong. You would not really want to prepare for it. And that the idea of preparing for it would almost be causing it to happen or having malice in your heart. There's a sort of sublayer to how this family operates, where because the loftiness of the goal and the whole, for the greater goodness of the goal, that they never have to prepare for any other issue. And then you have the thing that, a lot is made that Hawaii has very strict animal restriction laws, specifically because they don't have any rabies of any kind on the island chain. And they really work to make sure that continues to happen. But I think that actually speaks to the heart of the narrative, and that nothing in this movie should be allowed to be the way it is. The family should not have a quote unquote domesticated chimp. This house should not be carved into a natural cliffside with zero exits. Like, I will grant you that these are all manufactured components of the script to force these characters into an extraordinary circumstance. I understand this is a movie. I didn't come for realism, but I do also believe that it goes to serve the idea that these people that have forced their way into nature. They've carved their way into it to establish and live by human rules. And then when nature comes to take that back, they're very unprepared for the ramifications for that. They expose themselves to grievous harm.
They're so unprepared that they are constantly leaving their phones behind with a running, I don't know if you call it a running gag, a recurring moment that cracked me up. Everybody's like, where's your phone? I left it charged. It's like, somebody should have a fucking phone here. Nobody has a phone with them.
Yes. But when someone does end up having a phone, that also causes their deaths. Because phones don't help either.
Also because everybody leaves their ringers on, which personally I found to be the least realistic part of this movie. I could not tell you the last time I've had my ringer on my phone.
Well, yes. That is an odd thing. Although neither I nor Ollie tend to do that, but Becky never turns her phone on silent, ever.
Oh, she must still be on a mom of a little one mode then.
I think it's just a habit that's never turned off, so she doesn't. And honestly, it doesn't bother me enough to say anything. And
well, no, of course not. But it's just like I'm so nobody in my household has a ringer on.
Yeah,
and it's it's just it was just amusing to me that everybody had their ringer. All these young people, like none of them were older than like 22.
Right.
All had their ringers on.
It is an odd one, that's for sure. And as such, like, because they've made this impossible home buried within a cliffside, hanging over this precarious spot, that it's this scar that it's almost like they've scarred the land and the land is going to return that to them. I think it's a high-minded idea that you can get, but I don't know if it's necessarily intentional. Like, I wouldn't say this is the movie's grand comment. It's just that you do so many of these things in a row, I'm going to come to that conclusion.
Of course, no. And definitely what you said about hubris is I think that is very intentional. That this family thought that they could turn, and with good intentions. Let me be clear, with good intentions, that they could turn this an animal with the upper body strength equal to 4 adult men into a sort of kid brother to the 2 young women in the household. And that nothing could possibly happen to this because they've tamed him. Yeah. What do you mean he could just go wild and attack? He wouldn't do that. He's our family,
right? And the other element of this is that this family unit has yet to really confront the loss of the matriarch within it. This mom dies. You have a grieving husband. You've got 2 kids who are at very different spectrums of dealing with it. You have a younger daughter who's still very much in this household. And then you have this older daughter who, she's gone to college. That is a form of escape. That's not to say she's not thinking about it and all this stuff, but she has been able to put herself in a different situation. And part of her non-dealing with this has been to stay at school and not come home as often as maybe that family might want or need, given this loss in their lives.
Well, also the father traveled a lot too, because he's apparently a writer of some note.
Yes, a writer of murder mysteries, which the protagonist is also deaf, and I think that this adds an interesting wrinkle to the movie on the whole. I also don't feel it's like super exploitative. Like it just kind of fits into this. I am curious
if the character was originally written to be hearing impaired, because the actor is. Yeah. He had won, I want to say, a supporting actor Academy Award a couple of years ago. So I was afraid that he would turn into one of those cases where you win an Academy Award and then you're never heard from again. So I was very happy to see him pop up in this, and I was very happy that, spoiler alert, he lives at the end.
Right. And yes, they do use his deafness at one point, but also that deafness is a component of his character throughout. It's part of the reason why Ben is part of the family. It's part of the reason why he got together with his wife, and why they've raised their family in this particular fashion. It's all a part of it. It doesn't feel just it doesn't feel
tacked on to suit the actor. That's true. That's a good point.
And he, because that character is now the primary breadwinner, he's also feeling this sort of financial drive to do these that takes him away from his daughter coming home. Like he's going to
sell the rights to his book to Walter Friedkin, which is like Walter. Is that a cousin that we never heard of?
Walter Friedkin. He also insults The Exorcist too by calling it a giant piece of crap, but for funzo reasons, not because he's personally offended. I felt like there was a lot of compelling story machinations here that just never felt super tacked on. Like, well, if it wasn't for this, they wouldn't be doing that. It all feels a piece of it. Like, they need to have, as a family, a giant conversation, and they're all avoiding it. And because they're avoiding this thing they can't really wrap their minds and hearts around, when something goes terribly wrong, they're very easy to dismiss it because they're so much focused on their own emotional needs in that given moment. And it makes them feel less uncaring than someone might. In Cujo, they barely see that dog until it's too late.
Right.
And then there's some machinations to keep the people who've seen Cujo from saying anything.
Right. And also you don't have that, that extra aspect of, there's still an emotional attachment here. Right. Almost like a little bit of an old Yeller thing. Where, we have to kill him because, he's already killed people. But at the same time, like, no, this is Ben. This is like, he's been a member of our family for years now. And I think it's an interesting aspect because in a lot of animal attack movies, it's just this, soulless, mindless creature who is, now I would say this movie is framed a little bit like a slasher movie, as, a lot of animal attack movies are.
Sure. And this more than most is staged in that manner. Yeah.
Right. But you've got, but you also have the heroine, genuinely, feels bad about having to hurt him.
Yes. They're trying everything they possibly can not to. And to a certain degree, there's a refusal to believe what's happening is happening that runs concurrent to the refusal to deal with the aftermath of their mother and wife dying. Right.
And I think that they're not processing the fact that there is no good ending here.
Yes.
Because either way, he's doomed. And you could either, make his death quick before he hurts anyone else, or you could let him suffer.
And they're not prepared for either. They're just not prepared.
Right. I mean, who expects a family pet, even if it's a fucking chimpanzee, to just go, literally ape shit and start, smashing the heads of your house guests and all.
Yeah. It's weirdly almost set up like the good son in some respects, but in the fact that it's also this animal, but it's also this family member, but this family member is infinitely more dangerous because he can rip your face off. He will smash your head in with a rock, and he's good at it.
and even though he has a disease that is essentially rotting his brain at like hyper speed, he also somehow is invincible.
Yes, he's a little mini tank.
Yeah, he's a hairy little Terminator.
Yeah, and so it's one of those things that can't really be dealt with by, let's just grab a knife. Like, if you're close enough to get at him with a knife, you've probably already lost.
I was going to say, if you're close enough to get him with a knife, he's, basically your arm's coming off.
Yeah. And so I think the movie finds some interesting ways and doesn't overstay its welcome. I don't even think it's a biscuit under 90 minutes.
This is super fast. Like I said, it takes off. Like the first gory moment is within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really, I mean, I would say in the middle, that scene where the two dudes show up and are kind of sneaking around the house, that gets a little flabby. That could have been cut down by a couple minutes. But I get it was to build tension. I mean, you know what happens
and you know what's going on and they don't.
They're showing up expecting to get fucked, and boy, do they get fucked.
Oh, they get fucked over, but good. Yeah. That scene in the bedroom really, because that guy is super, super inebriated.
Yeah, I think he honestly does not even realize, does not even comprehend what he's looking at.
Yeah, by the time he realizes he's in danger, he's still trying to dance around. How can I possibly get out of this? Like, by the time he's even approaching sober, he's too far into this. There's just no way to extricate yourself from the situation. And so it's practically the bomb underneath the table, only the bomb is on his chest.
Right.
And yeah, I I wish here's what I would like for those two characters. And this is what I would put out there for anyone who gets handed this kind of role. And that is watch you some Friday the 13th, right? You want to see, and it's the reason why we started the show in the first place. All those actors were like, I'm going to have 7-8 minutes of screen time tops. How am I going to make the most of this time so that when people walk out of that theater, they remember, remember so-and-so who died this way, but the reason you kind of remember they died that way is because you liked them or thought they were funny or you thought they were a jerk. They're memorable in some way. And I don't think those two make the level of choice necessarily. They're relying a little too much on inebriated frat bro. Like, I don't know what the difference between those two dudes are.
Yeah, they're basically their direction was be loud.
Yeah. Be loud because everyone else is trying to be quiet and and they know the more noise you make, the more Ben will be able to sense where you are. So there's a dynamic at play and I get it, but I do wish they had made grander choices than they did, if only to separate which one is which. Because you like, I know they're two separate actors. They don't look alike, but if you held up those character names next to one another, I'm like, I don't know which one is which.
Now, again, maybe that was an intentional choice. I mean, they're deadbeat. They're deadbeat. They're disposable characters. The audience is, not supposed to have any strong feelings about them either way, except maybe, these guys are kind of obnoxious.
And you do need, because Ben manages to dispatch a fair number of partygoers very early on to really establish how dangerous he is. You need a bigger group of dead bodies.
Yeah, you need more reserves to show up.
Right.
But yeah, I would say that one thing that I was surprised by was the order of the deaths in this. Like, characters you expect to make it a little longer than they do don't.
Right.
And characters you expect to go pretty quick hang around for a while, which I found some interesting choices.
So this is one of the things that I really was left with both times I've watched this. And that is the character of Hannah. And Hannah is a very stereotypical frenemy, right? This is a friend you made in college. You're not deeply connected. You get along and you like doing things together. And what would be more fun than taking them back to Hawaii and you have this cool house and you're going to show them around and they're a good party person. And then you start to realize, I introduced the wrong person into this environment because I had this idea of, my best friend Kate's going to show up and that's going to be complicated in terms of friendships. But then I'm also always been secretly into Nick, but Hannah obviously sees Nick and goes, oh my God, he's super cute. I'm going to jump all over that. And Lucy is, again, in denial about so many things. She refuses to admit that she has feelings for him and instantly regrets that she doesn't say something out loud because, of course, Hannah jumps all over his face. Because why wouldn't you? Because that kid is cute. I'm sorry. He's too young for me.
But he is also the first of the group to die, which I, found like there are no male heroes in this until the dad shows up at the end.
Right. I don't, there's really, no heroes. Everyone ultimately, though, I feel does the thing with the exception of the two frat boys, because they don't know that anything's happened. They're completely caught unawares. But everyone who sort of goes through an attack with Ben, it honestly starts to, at almost every point, while they do stupid things, it's only because it's kind of the only choice left at that point to do. And as a result, like, you think Hannah's going to be an instant turncoat. And she isn't ever a turncoat. And I just they could have left this character to hang. This would be the perfect, someone has to be the human villain here. And they never make that choice. And I was kind of like, I love this.
Yeah, when she shows up on that plane, I think the audience's first reaction is, ooh. Like she's, she's probably going to be we're not supposed to like her.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be happy when she dies. And it turns out only annoying frat boys. I'm not really happy that anybody died in this.
No, I mean, and they like, I don't know if it's deserving necessarily. They just wander into the worst situation possible. And, they're semi-invited.
And react to it in a way that, is probably not the best idea.
Yes. But of the core group, you have this sister who gets bitten on the leg and she's like immobilized for a good portion of the movie. And they're trying to protect her because she's the most vulnerable. And they all find ways to protect her and try to protect one another and try to make these decent decisions within the moment. They think, all right, I'm going to go for that phone on that ledge. He seems to be afraid of the water. Oh, he is better at climbing rock walls than I am. And then you get thrown off that fucking cliff. And then a shot of they really go for it in this movie. They want that little brutality hit because you see that head hit a rock.
Oh yeah.
Even in shadow, you know exactly what's happening. And I kind of enjoyed that there were a lot of choices I don't think people would have gone for that the movie does. I was sort of invigorated by its dedication to the movie it wanted to be and never really shying away from that. And also not doing the easy character sacrifice. They make tough decisions and people you don't want to see go and everyone goes in a rather brutal manner. And the people who survive barely survive.
Yeah. And Hannah is the first one to, basically reasonably say, well, who has a chimpanzee as a pet?
Right.
And she's right.
She's right.
It's like, I do love the fact that when Hannah later, calls the police, she just says the chimpanzee, and they know exactly what house to go to. Right. Because what other house on this island do they have a pet chimpanzee?
That's right. I mean, that's the thing. Like they're living in such a small spot that instantly kind of everyone knows what's going on.
Oh, that's a chimpanzee house, of course.
Oh, the chimp house. And so it's I just feel like it probably because it was in so many different hands over the years, you could probably note this movie to death and make characters dumber and make the situations more obvious and make these kills less brutal. But I feel like they kept making the choices like, no, that's not the kind of movie we're making here. We're making a movie where, sometimes people are going to get it and you are going to feel it. They're going to show you the impact of these deaths, and it's both exhilarating and delightfully unfun.
Yeah, because the audience has to be reminded, just like the characters are over and over again, that these things will fuck you up.
Yeah,
that they have insane upper body strength.
Yeah.
That they can poke out eyes, they can rip off jawbones, they can bite you, they can pick you up and toss you like a bag of laundry. Like you're like, oh, chimpanzees, they wear diapers and smoke cigarettes and play ukulele. And it's like, yeah, but they can also rip your face off, and they have ripped faces off.
Yes, and this movie relishes in that and knows that, and both fulfills it immediately, but then sooner or later, this is going to come back. And there's a nice 1, 2, 3 punch to it that I really enjoyed as an ongoing motif. It also, it makes some references. Obviously, Nope is a touchstone here, but I don't think it engages with that too much. It knows that it's there.
No, but it knows the history that Nope is referencing.
Yes.
You can't treat this wild animal like he's a member of the family, like he's the honorary youngest child.
And there's that sequence where they hide in the closet and it's obvious that they're going for that Halloween sequence, but they never quite give it to you. They set it up and you think it's going to happen. And then they find ways to make it less so. And they know that because the chimps, because it's an animal that's rabid avoids water because it freaks them out. The wavy glass reminds Ben of the water. So they're somehow a little bit safe in there. It plays with all these little moments in a way that I know where it's coming from, but it's also not just reminding you of a better movie to say, I've seen better movies. Which, no. Coming off of Remarch, we confronted on more than one occasion.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely is meant to be, an homage and not like, here, maybe you'd rather you're watching this, but too bad, asshole, you're watching this instead. The only issue I had was, and again, we don't come to animal attack movies for realism.
Sure.
Is rabies is not a fun way for anybody to die.
Right.
And you pretty much you lose your faculties very quickly. And I do think that the movie plays around perhaps a little too much about how aware Ben is of what he's doing, because he does fuck with people a little bit. He stalks. He's not entirely just, the Tasmanian devil, which is, basically how an actual rabid animal would be in real life. Just basically just going nuts and probably just ending up dropping dead of exhaustion rather than just attacking people. But, he's calculating. He stalks his prey. He mocks his prey in one scene with the jawbone scene. So I'm like, well, I understand, but I'm going to accept a little a little artistic license for fun. I get it. We don't come to these things for Wild Kingdom,
right? Yeah, I mean it's a rabid chip machine. It's a permission. It's a rabid chip movie. It's a permission machine to see jaws ripped off of faces. But yeah, you're right. There's a little Michael Myers to this Ben character, and it's consistent. It is consistent from where he's almost the rapscallion little brother character that you've seen in so many 80s and 90s sex comedies, where he's just a little too clever by half, and he likes to tease. And as such, as he goes mad, that takes a rather murderous turn.
What would you do if your online store converted 36% more shoppers? You could take 36% more vacation.
Another pina colada?
Yes, please.
Open a new retail location with 36% more square feet.
Fantastic.
Hire 36% more help.
You're hired and you're hired.
Shopify has the world's best converting checkout, up to 36% better than other e-commerce platforms. What you do with those extra sales is up to you. Switch to Shopify today at shopify.com/listen and get a $1 trial. Shopify.com/listen.
Right. But at the same time, I think that adds a nice little element of suspense is can we trick him? At what point is he going to be so far gone that, maybe we can, lead him into the water, because chimpanzees famously, I guess, can't swim. Maybe we could do that, but we don't know, because he also seems like he does know what's going on. So it's, I really, again, artistic license, suspense. I get it. It was just one thing I noticed is well, how much sentient thought is he so capable of at this point?
Right. I was slightly offended as a former Eagle Scout how bad people are at knots in this movie. But then again, under that kind of pressure, what kind of knots am I putting together?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a chimpanzee in your vicinity who appears to be sick in the brain, what kind of efficient knot are you going to be tying?
Yeah. It's worthy of examination when it comes to that. So yeah, overall, I really found myself happier with it than not, and kind of wishing it had done a little better in theaters. But I just feel like, with some exceptions this year, that there's such a high volume of horror coming out that it's tough for some of these smaller movies to, if they're not micro small, that their $9-10 million opening somehow looks like, oh, well, they're dead, they're toast. Because like Undertone makes 9 million. Well, that's a 9 times multiplier over what it cost. This, there's a monkey suit involved. There's location work. This is a old fashioned, dark castle one set wonder for the most part.
It's all the gore is practical effects too.
Yes.
And it's good.
And it's good.
Really good.
That money, that 20 mil is on the screen.
And unsparing.
Yes. But by the time it kind of gets into its second weekend, it's already in competition with a bunch of other films. And I feel like that just is going to be an ongoing theme this year for a lot of new horror that isn't Scream 7.
There is a lot of, I think, the issue with this one in particular might have been just, that January dead zone. I can't say this is a, cast of stars.
I've never seen any of these people, with the exception of the Oscar winner in the cast. I've never seen any of them.
And the movie that he won for was not exactly box office gold. I mean,
it came out in the middle of COVID, so
I watched
gold.
it. I watched it and reviewed it. It's a very nice film, and he's very good in it.
Yeah,
but I don't know that the average, not to sound like a snob, I'm not intending to, but I don't know if the average Animal Attack movie fan would know him from that.
Yeah,
but nevertheless, he is the most known actor in the cast.
Right.
So you've got that. You've got a lot of competition, and I think I think we're going to see an interesting, occasionally irritating and sobering conversation about successful and underperforming horror movies this year, because you also have to look at everybody's broke. Right. So everybody has to start being a little more selective about what they're seeing. So they're going to go see a mostly known quantity like Scream 7 over something like Primate, I don't know anybody. Is that based on something? Do I know anybody in this movie? I can, and again, also the main issue that's been affecting, movies across all genres is how fast it shows up on streaming now.
Yes. Right. So
I've already watched The Bone Temple that came out like 2 months ago.
Yeah. The Bone Temple, I think, came out the week after this. So it's just, the volume of what we're getting. And believe me, I love more horror in our lives and everything. But I do feel like what we learned from that was it 22 or 23? It was 22 that started with Scream 5 and then had Smile and had Barbarian. There was this 2 to 3 week window for everything. And sure, some of it was due to not having so many movies built up quite yet because of COVID. But it allowed people to go to the movies, see a movie and go, I'm coming back for that one, when they saw the previews. And so it just kind of built over the years, so that by the time it got to Barbarian and Smile and The Menu, it just had built to this point where and Megan's making this giant opening because people had seen that preview for 6 months. And they're like, That looks fun. I'm going to go see that. And I don't think we're giving people that opportunity when you pile up all of these things on top of one another and try to build up sort of these smaller indie Neon and A24 horror movies on top of it. The competition is just getting a little too rough for I really worry about Lee Cronin's Mummy movie, which released a trailer as of this recording and really looks as brutal as Evil Dead Rise. And I fear that people aren't going to give it the same shake as Evil Dead Rise.
Yeah.
You already sort of have the effect of Scream 7 and Undertone sucked up so much of the sort of available oxygen that it took, you'd think you would get a bigger bump out of a Ready or Not sequel, and then They Will Kill You comes out right on top of it. That's why are you moving that movie up so much? These movies need space. They just you're killing the market.
You've got to give a month between them because you've got to give people time to go see them for one thing.
Yes.
You got to let word of mouth spread a little bit, which is how a movie like Barbarian did so well.
Exactly.
Which in turn is how Weapons did so well.
Exactly.
Now Zach Kreger is a known quantity.
Yeah.
This guy is going to make a scary movie that goes in places you won't expect.
And you just have to give some of this stuff a bit of an open space. But like April's already kind of packed with Mummy, and then what is that, Mother Mary that's also coming out, that's an A24,
which does not feel like a springtime movie.
No.
That seems like it needs to be in a time of year that feels a little darker. Maybe, I don't know, October.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know why so many studios are averse to releasing horror movies in October anymore.
I don't know. I think that's like time for tentpoles or something, that it's become its own weird, like it's between these two things to make all the horror money in October. And it's like, I don't know, guys. I think if you gave people a bit more variety around when people are in the mood, you might see more volume at the box office. But that's also tricky, because then if you have a big tentpole, it can suck up all the oxygen in the room. You just never know. But Jesus, April's pack, and May has like 3 big, I put that in quotes, big indie releases from A24 and Neon back to back to back that are pretty hefty, that have really big buzz behind them. And I'm like, I mean, who
has the time to see all those movies? And it's not like my life is action packed, but even I'm not like, I'm not really in a position to be going to the movies like 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
I wish I could, but it just is not feasible for me. Yeah. And it's not even like a cost issue. I have like a membership, but like, it's just like, I don't know. I don't want to go out every night after I go to work. I'm old. I want to go home. I want to spend time with my family. But
and yet you don't want to see a movie like necessarily a movie that might be better with the group experience. And horror, for the most part, is better in the group experience. Sure, there are some exceptions to this. Like, I don't care where you are when you see Saint Maud. That's just going to rip your heart out.
Yes. But like if something like a Scream, and I again, don't get me wrong, I liked Primate. I did. Yeah. But I definitely see where the theater experience would absolutely. I think I gave it 3 stars on Letterboxd. 3 stars is, this was good. Yeah. But I think I would have bumped it up to a 4 if I'd seen it in the theater.
But I think we've had several kind of disappointments in recent animal attacks movies where we felt they haven't quite reached they've either just been pure comedies. Like, I had a fun time with Cocaine Bear, but that was it was a comedy horror. It was not a horror comedy.
And its violence, the violence in it was so over the top. Yeah. That like it after a while it didn't even faze me. It's like, right. There's somebody get their arm bitten off, I mean, but here, like the violence is so visceral, and maybe it's because it is all practical effects. So you feel all that crunching and like flesh tearing and all, and it's very visceral. Yeah.
But the other thing is, the more recent movies have all really focused on sharks. Because next week we're going to do a shark movie.
Everybody's afraid of sharks.
Everyone is afraid of sharks. And I don't want to be eaten by a shark, but I do think you might have a greater possibility of having your face ripped off by a chimp than
I think I would be more like, unable to react, terrified in the presence of a, even I wouldn't even say an obviously ill, just an uncaged chimpanzee, right? Yeah. Than a shark. Like, I'm a decent swimmer. If I see a shark, I would at least attempt to get away. Yeah. I don't know that if I encountered a chimpanzee just chilling in my house, or if I was in a house that just had a chimpanzee, I don't know that I wouldn't just stand there doing the Lou Costello And then he's ripping my arm off and beating me to death with it.
So there you go. I think this is a decent watch. This is, if you're looking for this is a way to go. You're going to get what you paid for.
It clocks in just under an hour and a half, the perfect length of time that an animal attack movie should be.
Yes.
It starts, there's not an ounce of fat on it. The pacing is very good. If you want gore, you'll get a lot of it.
Yeah. You're going to get what you paid for. Absolutely. Including what you pay for here on this podcast, which is choosing your own death venture. And that's where we decide of the deaths portrayed here in Primate. If you were forced to die in one of those ways, which one would it be or why? Have your face ripped off.
While you're still alive. Emphasize while you're still alive.
Yeah, you are not unconscious. That you are very much alive for it. Push-pulled from a cliff's edge and land headfirst on a rock a great distance below. Have your head bashed in with a rock just on the stairs. Get your jaw ripped off your face. Head smashed in with a shovel. Just straight up mauled to death. Takes a while, that one. Impaled by pieces of a broken chair, and then to top it off, stabbed in the chest with a broken bottle. What?
Oh, wait, are we keeping? We're including the chimp's death?
Yes, why not?
Do we usually
He's a member of the family.
Do we usually do non-human deaths?
For this time, we are.
Well, none of these are good.
No.
But I am torn between the head injuries because. Not Smash of the Rock. I don't want that one. But either falling and just, my head smashing like a melon, because that's probably quick. It's like, when you're falling, you're like, well, that's it for me. I've had a good run. And then, that's lights out. The shovel, like he's still hangs in there for, a little while. So yeah, I think overall I'm going to take thrown off a cliff.
I mean, I get you 1,000%. But Gina, I can't do heights. That's not for me. So I'm going to take head bashed in with a rock. I know I'm going to be around for a longer portion of it, but I'm also, I can't do the heights, Gina. I can't do it.
That's fair.
So Gina, where can people find you on these here internets?
I write about movies and pop culture on my newsletter, GinaWatchesThings.ghost.io. And I am mostly on Instagram these days under Gina Does Things.
Do it today, people. Check it out. Go to screamshare.beehive.com. That's BEEEHIIV.com.
Why do they spell it that way? Why do they spell it that way?
I don't know. The regular beehive.com was taken. I can't tell you.
You should have called it something else then.
Sure. Is it harder than ghost.io? Probably. I don't know. But you know what? The product that you're going to get is fantastic. Every Thursday, I'm going to tell you 3 banger movies that you can watch at home. Speaking of things you can watch at home, I'm going to take that decision paralysis demon off of your bedside and give you 3 great options that are both new, classic, and free to stream. And then, of course, you can find us on the socials, with the exception of Twitter. Fuck that place at Kill by Kill Pod. And you can reach out to us at killbykillpod@gmail.com. You can talk back to us on YouTube. Subscribe to us there. You don't have to listen, but it's fun to subscribe there. I think it's the most fun you can have. And of course, you can talk back to us also at Spotify if that's where you listen. And buy a t-shirt. The TeePublic and Dashery stores are up. They both have the same stuff, and for some reason they have both things. I don't know why, but we're going to try to put up some new t-shirts soon. We have the t-shirt you demanded, everybody. My Vital Juices from Nosferatu. You asked for it. We have it. It's up there. So grab it and plaster it on your chest and tell people where you heard it first here on the Kill by Kill Pod. And that just about does it. Don't worry, folks. The body count will continue for myself and for Gina. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
They're all going to laugh at you.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.